So for this presentation, I'm focusing on the relationship between gift and obligation in Heloise's letters using Claire Novet's essay. My main argument is that even though Heloise says her love is totally selfless, like she doesn't want anything in return, it actually still creates obligation and debt. So basically, what looks like a pure gift of love is actually still part of an exchange. And I'm going to show that Heloise doesn't escape that system. She actually makes it even stronger. Starting off with, Heloise is really against marriage, but not because she doesn't believe in love. She rejects it because she sees marriage as some kind of transaction. Like, you get status, you get security, but you also owe something back. And Nove explains that marriage is tied to things like property and possession. So the wife isn't just loving the husband, she's kind of a part of this system where people own things and owe things. That's why Heloise thinks marriage messes up love, because it turns it into something interested, not pure. So when Heloise does something really wild, she says she would rather be Abelard's whore than his wife. But she doesn't mean that literally. She's flipping the meaning. Normally, a whore is someone who exchanges love or sex for money. But Heloise redefines it as the opposite, someone who gives love without expecting anything back. She's basically saying, I don't want your money, your status, nothing, I just want you. So at first, it seems like she's created a kind of love that's free, not about exchange, not about obligation, like a pure gift. But this is where Nove really complicates things. She basically asks, can a gift ever actually be free? And her answer is no. Because the second you give something, especially something big, you create debt. Nove explains that when someone gives a gift, the other person automatically becomes the debtor. So even if Heloise says, I don't want anything from you, that's not really true. Because she gives him her whole self, her identity, everything. And that kind of gift is impossible to repay. So when Abelard is stuck in this position where he owes her something, but there's no way to fully give it back. So instead of removing obligation, her love actually creates an even bigger obligation. This gets even more intense with Heloise's sacrifices, like when she humbles herself, calls herself a whore, gives everything to him. At first, it looks like she's lowering herself, but Nove shows that this actually gives her a kind of a power, because the more she sacrifices, the more Abelard owes her. She literally says that the more she humbles herself, the more gratitude she expects. And then the biggest example is when she enters the convent. She gives up her relationship with him, her desires, basically everything. That seems like the ultimate proof that her love is pure. But again, Nove flips it. This just makes Avelard's debt even bigger. Because now he owes her for her total sacrifice. So at this point, we see the main idea. Heloise is trying to create a love that's free, not about exchange, not about obligation. But every time she gives something, she actually creates more obligation, not less. Even when she gives everything, she doesn't escape the system. She just turns it into something more extreme. Nove calls this an economy of sacrifice. Basically, instead of exchanging money or status, they're exchanging sacrifice, love, and identity. But it's still an economy. So overall, Heloise's love isn't actually outside gift and obligation. It proves that you really can't really separate the two. Even the most selfless love creates debt, creates pressure, and creates expectations. And I think that's what makes her argument so interesting. Because it shows that love isn't just emotional. It's kind of a structured like an exchange, whether we want it to be or not. I also want to add one more important point that makes this even more intense, and that's the role of Christianity and the sacrifice in Heloise's argument. So throughout Nove's essay, Heloise's love starts to look a lot like Christian sacrifice, especially like Christ. In Christianity, Christ gives himself completely, like his body, his life, everything. And that creates an infinite debt that can never really be repaid. And Nove shows that Heloise is doing something really similar. She doesn't just say she loves Abelard, she sacrifices herself for him. She gives up her desires, her relationship with him, and even enters the convent. But here's the key thing, she's not doing this for God, she's doing it for Abelard. So she takes this religious model of sacrifice and basically redirects it into a human relationship. And because of that, the obligation becomes way more intense. It's not just you owe me something, it becomes you owe me something that can never be repaid. Nove calls this an unbounded or infinite debt, and it works just like the idea of debt in Christianity. So instead of escaping obligation, Heloise actually creates a situation where Abelard is completely in debt to her, and there's no way for him to fully pay it back. And I think this really shows the bigger point of Nove's argument. Even the most extreme selfless love, especially when it looks like sacrifice, is still part of a system of gift, obligation, and debt. It just becomes more powerful and harder to escape.